Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Donald Trump announces Iran and Israel have agreed to a ceasefire. What happens next after days of deadly missile attacks? Plus,
we love him, we miss him, and we wish he was here. I hope he's proud of us.
40 years later, Canada marks what Ottawa considers the worst terrorist attack in this country's history. The push to have more people learn about the Air India tragedy. And
the approach here is a little novel, having mini conventions, meetings of riding associations.
The BC Conservative Party launches a leadership review of John Rustad as he tries to control infighting within the Conservative movement.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. We begin overseas. U.S. President Donald Trump says Israel and Iran have agreed to a complete and total ceasefire. It's to be phased in over 24 hours. Earlier in the day, Iran launched a missile attack on a U.S. airbase in Qatar, which Trump says Iran gave the U.S. advanced warning of. Sam Sampson has the latest from Washington.
What's happened here, man? I don't like that. I don't like it.
From the streets of Doha, citizens watch as missiles fire off into the night. Qatar's defenses intercepting the weapons. This attack was meant for the nearby U.S. military base, Al Udeid, the largest American base in the Middle East. The U.S. president visited the site just last month, addressing the 10,000 troops himself.
We have the strongest military in the world.
Iran says it gave advance warning of the attack to Qatar, reportedly to minimize casualties. There are no reports the attacks killed anyone. Iran's attack was retaliation for the U.S. president's decision to bomb 3 of its nuclear sites, a move Donald Trump initially said was to destroy Iran's work to build a nuclear weapon and bring peace to the Middle East. Iranian officials said any aggression against its national security would be answered, but added in another statement that it was open to diplomacy if the U.S. and Israel stopped their attacks. Hours later, Donald Trump posted this: "Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire."
The president's been extremely clear about America's national objective here. It is to create a world where Iran cannot build a nuclear weapon. We're going to work to make sure that they don't try to rebuild that nuclear capability in the future. And look, this is a great thing.
While others are not convinced.
This was not a serious attempt to escalate, but rather it was a message of de-escalation. And Donald Trump has taken advantage of it to cover himself in glory.
I think for the most part, or at least this chapter is done. Not to say that this could not just go right back to where we were on a moment's notice for whatever spark that may be.
Politically, Americans are still torn on the decision for the United States to strike Iran in the first place. Democrats say the president should have allowed Congress to vote on that decision and still want more details about the attack itself, while others, based on Donald Trump's statements, are celebrating mission accomplished. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Washington.
Now, amid the tensions between Israel, Iran, and the United States, the Vancouver Police Department says it will be deploying more officers around the city and working with communities with connections to the region.
We know that when geopolitical tensions rise and conflicts happen in other parts of the world, that reverberates back here at home through incidents like hate incidents, conflicts between people who attend protests.
As we mentioned, Iran fired missiles on an American airbase in Qatar. That after U.S. bombers dropped those massive ordinances on Iran's underground nuclear facilities. The Israeli military says it carried out its most extensive strikes in Tehran to date. Human rights groups reports Israeli strikes have killed at least 865 people, and Israeli officials say Iranian strikes have killed 24 people in Israel. Opposition MLAs gathered outside of Kelowna General Hospital, saying there is no timeline for resuming pediatric services. They're calling on BC's health minister to act.
People in Kelowna, workers in Kelowna General Hospital are frustrated, they are tired, they are done with the spin, they are done with the delay, they are done with the uncertainty.
The disruption to pediatric services was announced in May, with Interior Health saying it would last at least 6 weeks. Minister Josie Osborne told CBC News pediatric services would resume, quote, as soon as they can. She did not confirm they would reopen in 2 weeks, as initially said. CBC News has asked Interior Health for a specific reopening date, but has not yet heard back. The BC Conservative Party, meanwhile, has launched a review of John Rustad's leadership. It's a routine survey of members' approval, usually done after an election loss. But as Katie DeRosa explains, it comes as infighting fractures the Conservative movement.
Questions are swirling about the leadership of BC Conservative leader John Rustad, following news that the party cancelled a fundraiser planned for Tuesday in Surrey. The party has also launched a leadership review where the 8,000 BC Conservatives have a chance to say yay or nay to Rustad's leadership by secret ballot. Instead of having the vote at one big convention, like the federal Conservatives will do to decide Pierre Poilievre's leadership in January, the party is holding riding-by-riding votes across BC.
So the vote will be taking place throughout the summer across the province, and then the results will be announced at either a convention or AGM in the fall.
Aisha Esty says the party's constitution calls for a leadership review after a provincial election. Party members in the Kootenay Rockies voted on Saturday, and another vote will take place June 30th, involving party faithful in all 10 Surrey ridings. Political analysts say it's an unusual way to hold a leadership review.
The approach here is a little novel, having mini conventions, meetings of riding associations to get a thumbs up, thumbs down vote on Mr. Rustad's leadership.
According to the BC Conservative Constitution, the leader can only be removed if they receive less than 50% support. CBC News asked Kelowna Mission MLA Gavin Dew, whose name has been floated as a potential leadership hopeful, if he stands behind Rustad.
Right now, I think we all have confidence in John Rustad. We all have confidence in leadership. We all want to make sure that our party is set up for success.
Rustad has struggled to maintain unity in the Big Tent Party, made up of social conservatives and more moderate former BC Liberals. 3 MLAs have left the party, and 2 of them have set up their own party called One BC. Rustad told CBC News that a caucus meeting set for Wednesday had been planned for weeks and is not an emergency meeting. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
Darius Madavi is off, so meteorologist Wesla English joins us with the forecast. Decent day, at least here in the Lower Mainland. Wesla?
Yes, beautiful sunshine in the Metro Vancouver area, and we're back to our seasonal highs. Let's take a look at the almanac to start. Today got up to 21 degrees at the Vancouver airport. It was a coolish weekend that we just had, but we are going to see a switch in the weather pattern, and that will bring our daytime highs back up to near seasonal over the next few days. Sunset tonight at 9:22 p.m. Here is a look at the upper level airflow. We are gradually switching to more of an onshore flow, and that means a westerly influence. So you can see that arrow pointing to where our weather will be coming from over the next few days. Again, we are going to see a bit of a warming trend. I'll have more weather details coming up in just a little bit, Dan. And here's a sneak peek. We are going to see some sunshine and warm weather coming up for the next weekend.
All right, Wesla, thanks very much. June 23rd of this year marks 40 years since the Air India tragedy, when 329 people, most of them Canadians, were killed when Air India Flight 182 was blown out of the sky off the coast of Ireland by a bomb. Now, ahead of memorial gatherings, our Saurabh Sandhu spoke with local faith groups in BC, calling on the province to build a large memorial and learning centre to honour the memory of those victims.
Surrey resident Vijay Chakraborty remembers visiting the Air India Memorial near Cork, Ireland, almost 2 decades ago.
I was absolutely spellbound.
Chakraborty says the memorial made him think of those who lost their loved ones in the plane crash.
That touched me at that point, seeing the warmth of the local people, the way they had kept that whole thing in their memory.
On June 23, 1985, a bomb in a suitcase aboard Air India Flight 182 exploded as the plane approached Ireland. All 329 people on board were killed, many of them Canadians. Chakrabarti is part of a group that has written a letter to BC's Premier calling for a larger memorial and learning center to be built in the province to teach younger generations about the tragedy.
My kids, they are being schooled here in Canada, in BC, and they have not heard about this. They need to know about, these things as a part of, their character building.
The campaign is being supported by many organizations, including local Hindu and Sikh faith groups.
We feel that our next generation should have an information center where they can learn about the tragedy that took place in 1985.
Yogesh Bhatia is a volunteer with Vedic Civics Charitable Society. He would like to see a space created that gives voice to the BC victims and their families.
At least, those people, who were killed, their family still deserve something. So that's why we are asking a memorable place and an education center so that our future generations know that violence of any type can create massive ripple effect in the society.
In a written statement, the province says it will work with community and organizations to better understand how they can continue to work to educate future generations. Major Sidhu, who lost his sister and her 2 children in the terrorist attack, says the bombing is often perceived as a tragedy affecting the Indian community, while the majority of people on board the flight were Canadians.
Air India tragedy.
He says to this day it's known as Air India tragedy, but it's part of the Canadian history. This tragedy should be taught about in schools and colleges. 40 years later, families still feel anguish. He believes building a new learning center will create more empathy and understanding for Canadians. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Vancouver.
New questions are being raised over how Vancouver's police department got $5 million for a crackdown on the downtown east side. Task Force Barrage was announced in February, but the money was not authorized by council. And the police board chair said he had no advance notice of it. As Justin McElroy explains, the lack of a paper trail has raised the ire of at least one councillor.
The relationship between the Vancouver Police Department and the Mayor of Vancouver is in the news. Again.
We need to know that authorization for police operations are not coming out of the back room in the mayor's office.
That is Councillor Pete Bry, who filed a Freedom of Information request to try and answer where funding approval for the VPD's $5 billion downtown east side task force came from.
There seems to be no paper trail.
And that is important because you have to remember how this task force to reduce crime began.
Here's the reality. Achieving it doesn't happen by chance. It requires decisive action, putting egos aside, and a lot of strategic investment.
That was in February, the mayor announcing the plan flanked by councillors and the police chief. Except council hadn't actually approved that strategic investment and bold direction. The mayor's office promised a vote, but after 4 months, that still hasn't happened. The VPD has said they will run $7 million over budget this year, the majority of which is due to the task force. But the police board chair said he didn't approve or know of the funding before it was announced. So where is the accountability for how the Vancouver Police Department spends $5 million for a major initiative that hasn't been approved or seen by the full council or independent police board before it's announced? We asked Mayor Sim for a response, and he provided the following statement. Councillor Fry's insinuation that direction for Barrage came from the mayor's office is false. To be clear, task force is a VPD-led initiative that I fully support. But 2 months ago, the VPD said this was a VPD and council initiative, with police saying it was because council had committed to the project and said the entire $5 million budget for the task force was the result of overtime charges, which may explain why nobody thought it needed prior approval by the police board. Now, you can say this is a lot of finger-pointing over process and timeline, but process and timeline matters in democracy, and there are bigger issues that drive this debate with the public. Here are 2 charts. One shows the amount Vancouver has spent on police services in every year since 2019, a 39% increase in 5 years and potentially more this year. And the other shows reported violent crimes in the city over the same time period, which, after years of bouncing around, is projected to go to a record low in recent history. Which chart you believe is more important probably determines how much you feel this is a big story or a big distraction. But until there's a vote by any public body on any aspect of this, it likely isn't going away. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
A frightening hit and run in Surrey Sunday night. A teen hit by a car on a busy stretch of road near a food festival. More on what happened and who was arrested after this. As we told you earlier, today marks 40 years since what the federal government considers the worst terrorist attack in Canada's history. On June 23, 1985, a bomb destroyed Air India Flight 182 as it flew near Ireland. 329 people on board were killed, most of them Canadians. And on the somber anniversary, a crowd has once again gathered at a memorial in Stanley Park to honor the victims. That's where we find the CBC's Mira Baines. Mira, what is the mood there?
Well, it is quite somber. As you said, many family members and friends are remembering loved ones that they lost, lives that were cut short, who are on that fateful Air India flight 182. Now, 40 years later, families are still looking for justice. And we spoke to some family members here. There aren't that many left here. We did speak to Amar Sidhu. He is Major Sidhu's son. Amar Sidhu Andrew says his aunt and his 2 young cousins were killed. They were aboard that flight, and this is what he had to say.
It's nice to see the families every year that show up. It takes a lot of courage to come every year, because it feels, for me anyways, for my family anyways, my dad will tell you, it's very hard for him today.
The ceremony is just getting underway right now. This is near the memorial near Sepperley Park in Stanley Park. There's a children's playground nearby. There are about 86 children who were aboard that flight when that bomb went off. And so during the ceremony, you can hear the sounds of children playing. This has been a terrible moment in the lives of these people, and it has been a very, very difficult day for some of them. When I spoke with them, they recalled some of their memories of their loved ones. But that ceremony is about to get underway very shortly, and we did see some Mounties that arrived in Red Surge for this special ceremony.
And Mira, any more about who is gathering there?
Well, there are a number of people gathered here. That includes family, friends, as well as police officers who were involved in this case over the years. But right now, people are still starting to arrive for that ceremony that's about to get underway in about 5 or 10 minutes.
All right. Mira Baines reporting from the Air India Memorial in Sepperley Park in Stanley Park. Thank you, Mira. Surrey Police is investigating alleged hit and run on Sunday night. A 14-year-old remains in hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. As Pinky Wong explains, police say officers arrested a suspect just a few hours later.
Surrey Police were called to Old Yale Road and Mall Access shortly after 10 p.m. Sunday. Officers say they found a 14-year-old boy had been hit by a vehicle that did not stop. He was sent to hospital with what police call short-term head trauma. The force says they found the suspect a few hours later, just a few blocks away. Police say they were arrested for alleged impaired driving and for failing to stay at the scene of a crash.
What we have to investigate and what the impaired driving allegation is relates to the driving at 2:15 in the morning. And so that's about 4.25 hours after the initial incident. So what officers now need to do is they now need to try and see if they can retrace the steps.
No charges have been laid. The crash occurred after the end of the nearby BC Halal Food Fest at Holland Park.
It does not appear at this time that this incident has any connection whatsoever to the food festival.
Festival staff say their hearts are with those affected. The organizer says they wanted to bring people together.
We promote diversity. We promote inclusion. We love to see, people from different communities come and enjoy.
Police are asking any witnesses or anyone with dashcam footage of the crash to contact them. Pinky Wong, CBC News, Surrey.
The RCMP says a 33-year-old Surrey man was among those killed after that rock fall in Banff National Park last week. The victim's name has not yet been released. His body was recovered by a search and rescue dog team 1 day after part of a cliff slid away on Bow Falls trails. A 7-year-old woman from Calgary, Jutta Hinrichs, was also killed. 3 other people were seriously injured. It's rainy in Revelstoke, and Westla English has your BC-wide weather forecast coming up. If you were out and about at Pride events this summer, you will have a chance to help shape LGBTQIA+ two-spirited health policy. Community-Based Research Centre, a nonprofit here in Vancouver, has launched a national survey called Our Bodies, Our Health. It says there is a dangerous gap in government health data from the LGBTQ+ community. Nathan Lachowski is the CBRC's research director. He joins us now. Nathan, thanks for being here. Perhaps the big question first off is, what information do you feel the government is missing that might hurt people in the community?
Yeah, we lack a lot of essential data on the sexual and reproductive health of 2S LGBTQ people, which means that we can't plan appropriate health services or education for the community. And the few data sets that do exist in public health or government rarely collect information about being 2S LGBTQ. So it's important that we collect these data this summer to fill that gap.
Are you able to share some examples of stories that perhaps illustrate the need for more data on the ground experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, myself as a young gay man, I remember wondering where to go to get reliable, accurate information on sexual health. I think many of us can probably connect with that. And nowadays, there's so much more misinformation on the internet, and comprehensive sex education is not taught in every school. And then I think about some of my friends and colleagues that I work with, and there's so many instances of being denied appropriate health care, especially in this realm of sexual and reproductive health. So a trans person not being able to, or not being asked about fertility preservation when they're undergoing gender-affirming care. Or for queer women, being denied contraception or HPV screening when they ask for it from their healthcare provider.
Why do you think there is such a gap in government data here?
I mean, I think we can all acknowledge a lot has changed with respect to sexuality and 2S LGBTQ communities over the past decades. And really, this is a bit of a matter of our data systems needing to catch up. We're starting to see the federal government collect more information about our communities. But at the same time, we also know that there's still overt discrimination against 2S LGBTQ people. And some people in our communities don't trust the government with that information about themselves. And so this is a little bit of the importance of why we need to lead this data collection effort this summer.
How open do you think people in the community will be to offering this information?
We've had an amazing response so far. We started our data collection this summer in Winnipeg earlier this month, and we're continuing to visit over 24 communities across Canada. And we've found that people are really interested in the opportunity to share their stories, to be validated in their experiences, and to really feel like their data is going to be put to good use in terms of advocating for better health services and systems.
For someone watching this, hearing about this, and they want to participate, how can they do that?
Well, hopefully we'll be at a Pride Festival near you at some point this summer. But if you're not at a Pride Festival that we're at, you can visit cbrc.net or search the internet for Our Bodies, Our Health, which is the name of our study, to find out where we're going and also to be able to participate online from anywhere in Canada.
All right. Nathan Lachowski, the lead researcher with the Community-Based Research Centre. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Back to our top story now. From the moment American bombs pummeled Iran's nuclear sites this weekend, the world wondered whether this conflict was about to spiral into a war no one could control. But as Paul Hunter reports, in a bizarre social media post, Donald Trump has unilaterally declared the war over.
Here's what dropped just after 6 p.m. Eastern. Congratulations to everyone, he writes. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire beginning in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions. After 12 hours, he continues, the war will be considered ended. The official end, he says, comes around 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war, said Trump tonight. Separately, he expects this to last, quote, forever, calling it a wonderful day for the world. All of this just hours after Iran retaliated for that massive strike by U.S. forces on Iranian nuclear facilities early Sunday. Multiple rockets fired from Iran said to target the giant U.S. military base outside Doha, Qatar. But these images underline Iran's response, ferocious as it seemed, was in fact tepid. Here, anti-missile defense systems intercepting all but one of the Iranian missiles. Trump calling Iran's retaliation weak and noted Iran itself had given a heads up the missiles were en route, Trump even thanking Iran for doing so. Trump's Vice President, J.D. Vance, was on Fox News tonight speaking to that, underlining again the U.S. imperative that Iran not ever be in a position to build nuclear weapons. That was the stated goal of Trump in all of this, and per J.D. Vance, it remains so. Here's a clip.
But here's the question. If Iran is desperate to build a nuclear weapon in the future, then they're going to have to deal with a very, very powerful American military again. Our hope is that the lesson that the Iranians have learned here is, look, we can fly a bunker buster bomb from Missouri to Iran completely undetected without landing once on the ground, and we can destroy whatever nuclear capacity you build up. I think that lesson is what's going to teach them not to rebuild their nuclear capacity.
Paul Hunter reporting. Prime Minister Mark Carney is in Brussels to sign a security and defense deal with the EU. Carney also visited a cemetery where hundreds of Canadian soldiers from the Second World War are buried. As Kate McKenna reports, it comes ahead of the NATO Leaders Summit that begins Tuesday in the Netherlands.
At a military cemetery in Belgium toured by the Prime Minister, Canada's long-standing relationship with Europe is clear. Nearly 350 Canadian soldiers are buried here. Now Canada has signed a new deal aimed at bringing Canada and Europe even closer.
As the saying goes, hard times reveal true friends.
Today, this is a new era of cooperation, and this will make us both more resilient and more prosperous.
The pact seeks to make it easier and more affordable to buy weapons and ammunition.
And as we build up those resources, we can do those in a way that's complementary and mutually reinforcing.
With the long-term goal of Canadian involvement in a major procurement initiative called Rearm Europe.
This partnership will allow us to strengthen our preparedness faster and better, to invest more and to invest smarter.
Canada's looking to Europe as its closest ally has been less reliable. Mark Carney is still trying to negotiate a new deal with the United States in the middle of a trade war.
The right deal is possible, but it's nothing's assured.
Next up on Carney's Europe trip is the NATO summit, where talk of the Israel-Iran war could overshadow other subjects.
When it comes to NATO's stance on Iran's nuclear program, allies have long agreed that Iran must not develop a nuclear weapon.
For years, for decades really, Iran has pursued nuclear weapons. Well, Iran has expressed a desire to eliminate the state of Israel, The
main item on NATO's Tuesday agenda will be raising the defense spending target to 5% of a country's GDP. It's a big hike as Canada and other countries struggled to meet the previous target of 2%. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Brussels.
At 6:35, there's a live look at downtown Toronto, the CN Tower. It has been a sweltering day in parts of Ontario and Quebec, but temperatures hitting the mid-30s with that humidity. Why some schools stayed closed after this. It has been an incredibly hot day in parts of Ontario and Quebec. In Toronto, for example, temperatures soared to 36 degrees Celsius, but felt much hotter in the mid-40s with that humidity. Greg Ross has more on the city's efforts to keep people cool.
Max Ramos was out for a morning swim because he didn't want to deal with the crowds later in the day.
We know it's not going to be busy because most kids are at school and stuff.
Keegan Tang also needed a break from the heat.
I don't have any AC. I sit in front of a fan most of the day, so this is better than a fan.
He was hoping to go for a dip Sunday night as well, but couldn't get in.
Yesterday I came 3 or 4 times, and the lineup was like almost to the edge of Christie Pits.
That was an issue yesterday at pools around the city. Many unexpectedly closed for several hours at a time, something the mayor tried to explain today.
They were technically open. They just had a closure period. They were longer because the lifeguards were feeling really hot.
She says they couldn't force lifeguards to work long hours in the heat.
Health and safety protocol kicked in as mandated by the provincial government. The Ministry of Labor have an employment standard branch.
A problem she says should be resolved moving forward.
We have now deployed additional lifeguards to city pools so that some of the lifeguards in the few pools can take longer breaks.
In addition to pools, there are hundreds of other places listed on the city's website where people can go to escape the heat.
Opening 545 cooling spaces, including libraries, community centers, malls throughout the city.
The heat wave hits the city with schools still in session for many students. The school board says teachers and staff are doing their best to keep their kids cool.
Keep the blinds down, keep the lights off, open the windows. A lot of the classrooms have fan, turn on the fan. Every single TDSB school has a cooling center, and that can take its shape by air-conditioned library or going to the gym, wherever kids can find some relief.
It's really hot and they don't have any air conditioning inside, only at the library.
We're fortunate enough to have a pool, so if midday she wants to come take a dunk, we're going to bring her home and give her lunch and let her take a dunk in the pool and then come back. But we said if she gets really uncomfortable, just go to the office and let us know, we'll pick her up.
The weather update is brought to you by BC Cancer Foundation. Support BC Cancer Foundation by leaving a gift in your will and join our 90-year legacy of driving life-saving innovations.
Wesla English, meteorologist, joins us now with the BC-wide weather forecast. Hearing those stories from Eastern Canada, Toronto, I do not envy the humidity, Wesla. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, yes, Dan, as you mentioned, it felt like it was in the mid-40s with the humidity. Let's take a look at today's highs across Ontario, and you can see, yes, it was very hot today there. And even tonight, not much of a cool down. We will see tonight's lows in the mid-20s for some areas. They will start to see some cooling down midweek, but until then, you can see tomorrow still in the 30s. Back here in British Columbia, we talked about how most areas were cooler than seasonal over the weekend here in BC, and southern parts of BC had some pretty good rain too. So that's why the fire danger rating has improved for many parts of the southern half of British Columbia. Northern areas, however, still seeing that higher levels of fire risk. Here are the temperatures you can expect tonight. Nothing too out of the ordinary here for this time of year. June, the month of unsettled conditions, and that's what we will see for many areas across the province for tomorrow. The BC North and Central Coast will see rain developing tomorrow. Also, the western parts of Vancouver Island, it will be wet there too. In the BC interior, we will see sun and cloud to start for many areas. However, we can expect increasing cloud midday with spotty showers Tuesday afternoon. Daytime highs in the low to mid-20s with the majority of the BC interior. This satellite image helps explain the weather story. You can see we were under a northerly flow yesterday. Today, we are switching to more of a westerly flow, and it has highlighted in the precipitation forecast that westerly flow will drive rain onto the coastal areas, with the north coast and the central coast getting the majority of the rain. Here in the Okanagan Valley over the next 5 days, tomorrow sun and cloud to start, then increasing cloud with the risk of showers or thunder showers. It will be breezy. Gusty winds up to 40 kilometers an hour on Tuesday. Similar situation on Wednesday, but most areas across BC will benefit from an upper ridge this weekend, and we too will see some heat moving in for the weekend. Until then, here's a look at Metro Vancouver. Near seasonal over the next couple of days. We will see increasing cloud, though, on Tuesday for Metro Vancouver. So sunshine to start, but then we will see more showers moving back in by midweek, Dan.
All right, Wesla, thanks very much. As we've mentioned, today marks 40 years since one of the worst tragedies this country has ever experienced, and the largest case of mass murder in our nation's history. A bomb planted by sick extremists on board an Air India flight exploded off the coast of Ireland just hours after it departed from Montreal. The CBC's Angie Seth dug into the archives with help from victims' families.
About a month before he left, he wanted to have an updated family picture. So he got us together and took us out to a photographer, and fortunately we have that. This is the one that hangs on in my mom's place next door.
Rob Alexander was only 15 years old when his father, Anchunat, died in the 1985 Air India bombing that killed all 329 people on board.
It's a surreal thing. You hear of these stories where, you know, someone dies suddenly and you never think it's going to happen to you.
Tell me about this one.
Just kind of a classic picture of the two of us. I can't remember what the joke was, but he got me laughing. Over the last 40 years, there has been so many ups and downs, mostly downs. It was really shocking that happened to my family.
So this is one of many boxes that you've received. Pictures. A small room and a few boxes, home to the lasting memories for those who lost loved ones in the 1985 Air India bombing.
There are personal letters, official letters.
40 years later, they finally will have a permanent home, a historical record at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario.
And that's the co-pilots, and that's the badges. This is something that was worn on their person, and those people are lost.
Chandrama Chakraborty is a professor at McMaster, leading the project and a group of researchers trying to keep the memory of the Air India tragedy alive.
So the boxes have a history of memories, history of erased stories, histories of erased grief, but ongoing grief as well.
She took it upon herself to put together a Canadian archive of one of the country's biggest and yet largely forgotten tragedies.
The archive might offer some kind of a memory justice for these families, right? By bringing into public memory this suppressed history.
These archives that are now at McMaster University, what does that mean to you to be able to actually have something like that now available?
I think will help all the families that if there's just one repository of information, it will help keep that narrative together. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the country.
On June 23, 1985, 329 people, mostly Canadians, died on board Air India Flight 182 after it was bombed off the coast of Ireland.
There has been a terrible air crash off the coast of Ireland.
There were multiple investigations and a public inquiry.
I did not have a chance to search that airplane, and I believe that if I had a chance to search it, things might have turned out differently.
Major Canadian intelligence and security failures were exposed, making the tragedy that much worse for loved ones.
You can imagine what kind of condition her body was in, as many were the others. The plane was at 31,000 feet. It blew up. It crashed in the Atlantic. Condition of a body that I would never imagine, and unfortunately that's the image I have stuck in my head of my mom, is that picture of her and of her body.
Sushil Gupta was just 12 years old when he lost his mother, Ramwati Gupta.
She loved to cook. I remember her singing while she would cook. The way she dressed, the way she did her hair, her hand creams, certain smells that I do remember to this day. I think Canadians need to be aware that terrorism is not something that happens somewhere else and over there. It does happen here, but more importantly, it has happened here.
It is the worst ever air crash at sea.
But this is not a tragedy that resonates in this country. According to polling, the majority of Canadians know very little about the disaster.
There has to be multifaceted approaches at all levels, right? At the level of the government, at the level of the community. It should not be just the job of families to keep saying their stories again and again and again. Many of them are fatigued.
Canadians, they need to know that these were people that were in their community. There were so many kids on that flight, so many people who are working in their everyday jobs, like my father, with the public.
Given the government's mishandling of many aspects of the bombing, the families desperate for the care and attention it deserves have trusted Chakraborty with their personal possessions. What did that trust mean to you?
It's a gift, but it's a difficult gift. It comes with a lot of obligation because it is a gathering of memories and histories that families have preserved this long. And then they're willing to trust me with those boxes of materials, right?
The process of putting these documents into a digital archive is slow and expensive. Funding will run out next year.
It's an obligation to make sure that those records are preserved for perpetuity beyond my and other lifetimes. So as long as McMaster as an institution holds, I hope it will be there.
So when the body was recovered, he had some personal effects that were returned to us. He had his wallet.
For the families, these tangible reminders of the lives lost are vital to preserving their loved ones' memories.
Even his social insurance card was intact. We've learned to talk about him at certain times, and we keep his memory alive that way. I go to the cemetery often, just knowing he's there sometimes.
Be close to him. I can tell your dad was very important to you. You were very close to your dad. If you could, what would you say to him right now?
Obviously, we love him, we miss him, and we wish he was here. I hope he's proud of us.
And Angie Seth joins us from Humber Bay Park East in Toronto at a memorial for the Air India victims. Angie, you described the bombing as a forgotten tragedy, but it is certainly top of mind for many of the people you interviewed for your story. How do you square that?
It's a forgotten tragedy among most Canadians. The families here, of course, for them, it never would be and it never can be, as they're going to, continue to try and honor their loved ones and to keep this story going. When we talk about a forgotten tragedy here in Canada, it's not part of the Canadian narrative as it needs to be. Many people that we've spoken to, even, in conversation with sort of members of the younger generation, when you say June 23rd, 1985, they have no idea what you're talking about. It hasn't been taught in schools. It's not sort of part of that narrative. It's not part of solidified sort of within Canadian history. That's where we see it as being defined as that forgotten tragedy. But the families here, as you can see happening around me, gathering for this memorial now 40 years later, as they've done so year after year. This is the second, in fact, memorial that's taken place today, event that's taken place. There was one earlier today at the original memorial. This is the second one that was erected around, 25 or so years ago.
What is the call to action now?
It is to widen that narrative. Calls for the government to sort of make this an official day. It is the National Day for Victims of Terrorism. Absolutely it is, and that is something that we recognize and that we honor. But there more needs to be done to understand what June 23rd means. Where does that stem from? They want this to be part of the curriculum taught in schools, within our history books. Many of the families right now are trying to get access to some of the wreckage of that Air India plane, that Flight 182 plane that is still in the custody, we understand, of the RCMP, and have it placed in a Canadian museum somewhere where people can learn about what exactly happened on that day.
Angie Seth reporting from an Air India memorial in Toronto. Angie, thank you. As competitions go, it may be the friendliest in town. North America's largest dragon boat festival hit the local water this past weekend. More after this.
Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC inbox.
CBC returns as the exclusive media partner of the Squamish Nation Youth Powwow, July 11th to 13th. The family-friendly cultural event welcomes everyone to celebrate Indigenous culture, music, and community. And on July 2nd, CBC's Musical Nooners free concert series returns. Every Wednesday at noon, enjoy an afternoon filled with tunes and talent. Details at cbc.ca/musicalnooners.
Thousands of racers from around the globe took over False Creek this weekend for North America's largest dragon boat festival. Have a look.
So this year at the 37th Concord Pacific Dragon Boat Festival, we have 222 teams from 9 different countries. We are expecting about 100 to 150,000 people over the 2 days. There's about 8,000 racers and race supporters that are here on site right now with us.
Let's do this, guys!
The Concord Pacific Dragon Boat Festival is the continent's biggest dragon boat event.
It's a lot of time commitment, a lot of, you have to be really passionate about it, but my teammates and like the social aspect of the community really like keeps me going year by year.
So to be here with this many teams from all over the world, it's mind-boggling. We're walking around just staring at everything and talking to all the other teams and just soaking up all the excitement.
Sometimes we'll have other teammates we have seen before actually in other teams, and we love going friendly competition against them.
And it's a lot of fun. And after an incredible run this season, the Abbotsford Canucks have earned some hardware tonight. They beat the Charlotte Checkers 3-2 in Game 6 of the Calder Cup Finals.
Takes a shot, scores! Sammy Blais, top shelf! And the Canucks are on the board.
This is the first time the Canucks franchise has won a championship. Goaltender Artur Shilovs, the pride of Latvia, made 28 saves throughout the game. He's also been named playoff MVP. Well done, gentlemen. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. We'll have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. See you then.